Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly respect Mr. Hoyer, but when he says that statehood is not a question for the American people to decide, he is fundamentally wrong. It is the most basic question that we can answer as a people. What shall comprise our country? And this bill is wrong in so many ways. I don't believe it's in the interests of the people of Puerto Rico or in the interests of the whole country. Let's begin with the fact that this provides us with a rigged election. The options don't include the most obvious option, that is to remain as a Commonwealth. If none of the three options that are listed on the ballot gets a majority, there's a runoff. And even if the option that was dropped was the clear second choice of voters, they don't get that option either. And I think that it is most likely to see a narrow transient majority, since the last plebiscite in November of 2020 scored just 52.5% in favor of statehood, 47.5% opposed, with just a 53% turnout. Secondly, this dismantles the Financial Oversight Board, and it transfers all of its assets to the Puerto Rican government, regardless of the outcome of the vote. Now, I oppose PROMESA, and I still do, but disbanding it and transferring the assets that the American taxpayers were promised would be administered by the board is a cynical, broken PROMESA. There's not even a CBO estimate of the cost to American taxpayers of admitting a chronically mismanaged and utterly bankrupt state government. The economy of Puerto Rico is expected to underperform the national economy, which is itself a disaster these days. For American taxpayers, it would mean a new state that has the lowest per capita income in the country, the highest debt per capita in the country. Its labor participation rate is 40%. That's compared to 62% nationally. 43% of the population lives below the poverty line, and its academic performance would be the worst in the nation. Under this bill, the independence option would include the requirement, if it passed, for the United States to continue financially supporting Puerto Rico for another 20 years with no say in how those funds are to be spent. Statehood would mean that in the next reapportionment, other states will lose a total of 4 seats in the House to accommodate the Puerto Rican delegation. I think we should also consider the question of language. Although the official language of Puerto Rico is both Spanish and English, only about 20% of the population is fluent in our national language, meaning we'd be admitting a state whose vast majority is isolated from the national political debate that is central to our democracy. To those who believe that statehood would solve Puerto Rico's financial problems, consider the fact that it would mean residents would be paying all federal income taxes from which they're currently exempt. The GAO estimates that that amounts to obviously a staggering tax increase, and the GAO estimates that it would cost Puerto Rico 70% of its remaining manufacturing base. But worst of all, I believe this is a blanket abrogation of the responsibility of Congress to make these decisions in the best interests of the United States. Whichever of the three options is chosen would be automatically enacted without any debate or decision by the Congress. This literally hands the constitutional authority reserved for the welfare of the entire nation to the hands of what would likely be a narrow and transitory majority in Puerto Rico. The only debate in Congress would be the debate that we're having this week, when the nation's oblivious to the legislation or any of its implications. Our constituents are going to awaken one morning the realization of a fait accompli that was quickly considered in a single week with no opportunity for national debate on the implications of admitting a new and completely bankrupt state government. I yield back.